things that we do. So anyway, good morning. Let's get started. Trading would be great if you didn't have risk, right? We have to deal with the old risk monster anytime that we trade. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was short Treasury bonds, and and I've been playing bonds, I guess, for a lot of years, and I just come off like 3 great trades in Treasury bonds, and then I had this one yesterday, and I said this looks to me like it's going to be a good one. I got into the trade, and it just immediately went against me, and I had a stop in, and I stopped myself out. And then I looked at bonds this morning, and bonds are even higher this morning. So I said to myself, "Oh, I'm glad I got out of those bonds um, because you have to use stops in your trading. You know, you can have an idea, you can have all the reasons in the world that you want to be short or long or whatever, but I think it's always good to use stops. And so I got out of an unproductive trade and was in a real good trade. Um, and a couple, I was long the NASDAQ, and I'm still long the NASDAQ. I'm long the NASDAQ this morning from yesterday. I'm long Google, and that's been a heck of a trade. We got in Tuesday in Google, and Google had their earnings yesterday afternoon, and the last I saw, Google was, I think, bidding 960, 961, which was a tremendous rise to have some Google. So if it can hold up for a few more hours, I will have a great day by 8:30 this morning. And a lot of people that we teach were long Google, and that makes you feel good too. DTI. We started this company in 1996, and when I started the company, I had no idea that I'd still be doing this all these years later. We're located in Mobile, Alabama, and we teach the futures market, we teach the options market, and the stock market, and we teach it through live trading. I believe that live trading is a way to learn because then you're going through the emotions of the moment, and you're doing everything that you need to do to practice the right procedures. And so we're known for the fact that we teach through live trading. There's a picture of a facility in Mobile. It was built. We moved in there in 2001 and been there ever since. So it's a wonderful place to learn about trading. A little bit about my background. I've been trading a long time. I actually started trading the S&P on the first day they had it. So it was in April, and I remember the first trade I ever made was a long trade in the S&P, and I think it was in the 100s at the time, if I remember. And look at it today. Here it is at 1700. Here's some books that I'd give you the titles of. The first 3 are mine: Winning the Day Trading Game, The Markets Never Sleep, and Trade to Win. The second set of books are some of the best. The Think or Grow Rich series is a great series from Nap Hill. It talks about some of the elements that people need to succeed. That's probably as important as anything in trading, is you got to have that right attitude. The second book is by a friend of mine, Richard Smitten. It's about Jesse Livermore. And now I want to tell you how to trade in stocks. Chapter 12 is the best, in my opinion, the best chapter on trading stocks I've ever read. And that's chapter 12 inside that book. The third book is Stock Trader's Almanac. I use it every year. I can tell you that today we have over a 70% chance that the market's going to be higher today if you look back over the last 21 years. So the market should be a strong market today. I know it stayed strong last night, and it's still strong this morning. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it. Now, this is something new at DTI. Uh, if you have an iPhone or you have an Android, you can go search DTI Trader, and you can download our app. What it has is two good features. One is a roadmap software. I'll show that to you in a little bit. And the second is that we have messages about the market. For example, what I just told you about the market having a strong day today. 71%, you'd get a message saying, hey, today's one of those days in the last 21 years has been an exceptionally strong day. But anyway, I'll give you a second. Why don't I give you a second to download that, and I'll be back in about a minute. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee, and I'll be right back.
Give us 1 second here to get Tom back on. Brief little audio blip.
All right, folks. Anyway, let me keep going here. I got one eye on the market. I'm watching the market to see what to do. All right, the DAX. I am I guess, a lover of the DAX. I've been trading it since 2001. I'll sort of tell you the story here because I think it's sort of interesting how I found out about the DAX. I'd been an S&P trader for many years. And in 2001, I don't know if anybody was trading in the markets back then, um, but in 2001, we had the attack in New York City. And when we had the attack in New York City, they closed down the American markets. And I remember having a class in Mobile at the time. And what I did is I decided I said, I got to have something to trade because these people had traveled a long way to be here. And so that night, I remember going home and I traded the Nikkei and I ended up losing money. And I traded the Hang Seng and ended up losing money. And then the FTSE opened and I traded it and lost money. And then I traded the DAX and I made money. I said, well, hey, this is the market I'll trade. And it's so interesting, how you getting off that good start with the DAX. that I've been trading it ever since. Well, about 2 years later, after trading the DAX, it's about 2003, the DAX decided to come to America and locate in Chicago. They contacted a lot of the clearing firms, and I got a call and ended up working for them for a couple years, spreading the word about the DAX. And what happened next was, it was a great relationship, but what happened is they changed from over in Germany. They said they wanted to focus not on the retail trader anymore. They wanted to focus on the institutional trader. And so it's sort of at the end of 2 years, I said, I get all this work I've done in the DAX. I think I'll start teaching a DAX course. And I got started back then, and I've been trading the DAX ever since. Now I'm gonna give you a website, and you can go there. They have a newsletter. It's called the Daily European Outlook, and this newsletter is free, but it's one of the best newsletters talking about Europe, what's going on, looking at the way they're looking at all the information coming out as a trader to take a glance at in the morning. And if I got time, I'll bring mine up and we'll look at it and see. So I would tell you that you go to eurexexchange.com and then sign up for their newsletter, and it'll come to you every morning. It's called the European Market Outlook. And it was funny because that was my idea that I had given them to start a newsletter, and they've really taken that idea and really put it to what I would call good use, because I always tell everybody I run in about it. It's one of the best free newsletters you can get. That's eurexexchange.com. Now, the global handshake. This is a concept that I came up with, and it was to be able to support the idea that the markets are fluid. For example, when the markets start in Asia in the evening, it is interesting how things trade in Japan, and then how things go from Japan to Europe, and then Europe to the U.S. And so I came up with a formula that will give me an estimate of where the S&P should be at 7 o'clock. You need the link. Let me see if I've got the link. I'll type this in there for you. Normally Adam puts that in. Let's try it here. Try that to go to the main website. And then you look for newsletter, okay? And then you just sign up for it. Oh, thanks, Sophie. There you go. That's one of my students there. Okay. Sanford, why don't you do me a favor? Go into our early bird session and invite them over here to this trading pub. Will you do that for me, Sanford? There are a lot of people looking for me over there, and that'll solve an issue if we just broadcast from this room. All right, the global handshake. The theory is that the markets are fluid. What happens in Asia translates to U.S. stocks, and they'll be marked up or marked down. Just the same way last night, the earnings announcement in Google, which made Google soar, translated into Asia last night. Okay, and because of that, you can mathematically figure out what the S&P should be at about 7 in the morning if you learn this formula, and it's called the global handshake. It consists of these 6 indexes: the Hang Seng, the FTSE, the Nikkei, the Swiss, the CAC, and the DAX. Notice the DAX is one of these 6. Now, the 2 markets I really look at in real time will be the FTSE market and the DAX, and actually trade the DAX. These are the 6 markets I've been using for years, and they do the setup in the morning. You take an average of these, you apply it to the previous day's close on the S&P, and you can pretty well pinpoint where the S&P is going to be at 7 in the morning. Now, I'll show you how to do this on the roadmap. We have it built into our software, but you can map. You don't need the roadmap to do this formula. All you just need is quotes on those 6 indexes. Let me give them to you again where you got it. Those 6 indexes. You need quotes on those indexes. And then I'll tell you some unique things about it once we get to the actual roadmap itself. So the idea is that when I wake up in the morning at 5 a.m., I want to know what the value price of the S&P is based on what's happened around the globe. And it's an important concept because it gives you sort of a vision of what to do. And so if the see the numbers up, then global markets are higher and our stocks will open higher in the U.S. And, you know, this goes against the theory of gaps because I believe that markets are fluid and trading around the globe. And you see, you know, you'll see a gap, you know, where maybe Apple closed at 500 in America and opens up at 506. But the truth of the matter is it traded up in Asia, it traded up in Europe before we even got to U.S. Open. Now, there's a key number that tells you you've had enough movement that you'll have what I would call the prices. Yes, it will. I haven't taken the, you know, I use it for the indexes, Vish, but it will affect it, and that's a good question you asked. And it, you know, it's really something that that I use just for the indexes. I think you'll find if you use it for the indexes, it works pretty good. You know, if you've seen the global markets up 2%, I'm talking about Asia, you see a consistent trend um, around the globe, then our markets will be marked up. I can remember back. Who remembers what happened the day that the day they caught Saddam Hussein? Anybody remember that when it happened? Let me tell you a little story how valuable this global handshake was. What happened was is that the markets gapped up, and just something else you can know. There's 2 markets that trade that you can sort of get a clue on Sunday afternoon, and they're Egypt and Israel. And at the time, those markets went up something like 4 or 5%, and that was that afternoon before the Asian markets kicked off. And a lot of people don't know that, but I do remember. I remember trying to find out what the effect would be on the fact we caught Saddam Hussein. It was on a Sunday. And I remember that we started out in Asia, and sure enough, we opened up, and Asia was up over 2.5% all the way through Asia. Gapped up, market was a lot higher. Well, I went to bed, and I remember waking up the next day, and I remember Europe only being up about 1%. And I thought to myself, wow, we didn't get the same 2% we had had in Egypt, Israel, in Asia. Here in Europe, I said, that's divergence. And I'll never forget this trade. And so we got into, we went on through the early bird, and the market stayed strong, but it was sort of a weak strong, you know what I mean? In other words, it had been marked up, and the market was down from where it had opened. By 8:30 that morning, the U.S. people come in, and they started buying the market, and it was about a 10-minute buying period. After about 10 minutes, the market had not made new highs, and I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be an opposite trade. Opposite meaning everybody in the world thought it was going to be a lot higher. We've been up through Asia, we've been up through Europe, we've been losing momentum. And I remember going short about 9 o'clock on that day. By the end of the day, the market had reversed, and it ended up down something like 2%. It's one of the best trades I ever made. And I remember being clued in with the global handshake, not having the momentum in Europe that we had in Asia, and then looking for it in the U.S. And then sure enough, it was a great day. In fact, if I remember correctly, um, it was just so much fun. I was selling everything I could, and by the end of the day, when I bought things back, I thought, all because of the global handshake. So it's an important concept. You ought to learn it if you're going to be up this time of day. You ought to learn how to use it. And if you ever have one of those big events, you ought to look for that divergence that happens. All right, let's look at it in real time. I'm going to go to desktop sharing here. Do that real quick. Morgan or Sanford, are y'all here? Will you get the right link into the DTI early bird room? There's a lot of people over there who would like to come in here. Into the main trade room. I haven't seen it posted. They're having trouble with the link. Hey, Sue Ellen. Sue Ellen's one of our students from Australia. All right, now we got the roadmap up there. I'm going to give you an overview of the roadmap. And I'm taking a lot of time because typically, if I'm going to do any live trading, it's going to happen after 5 a.m. Central Time in the morning. So I'm trying to give you a little background rather than just put on a trade. I want you to understand why I'm going to do what I do if I do anything, okay? Okay. Now, if you look at the roadmap, on the left-hand side, you will see that I keep track of the E-mini, the Dow, the NASDAQ, the DAX, the FTSE, the Eurostoxx, the Russell, bonds, crude oil, gold, and so forth. And I look at the opening prices, okay? I look at the opening prices. And so if I look at the E-mini, on the surface it opened last night at 1727. Currently it's at 1730, and I would rate that positive from where it opened. Now, let's drop down to the DAX. See the DAX at 88.50 opening and currently at 88.27. So two things are going to happen. The DAX is going to continue lower and pull the U.S. markets down, or the DAX is going to get stronger and pull the U.S. markets up. But right now we're currently trading 88.27.5 on the DAX. 88.27. Okay? On the DAX. Now, the ETR keeps track of these individual markets as they are moving. And so I don't have to sit here and stare at a screen. I can glance up there and see not much is going on in the indexes. And what I'd be looking for is either solid green or solid red to let me know I got a trend starting, okay? And that's the concept there with the ETR line. And then I drop down and I have a new feature this year called the matrix. If you look at the matrix is what a lot of people use. A lot of people use charts. And what I did with charts, I'm a tape reader, okay? And because of charts, they can get confusing sometimes. So what I did, I took charts and made it numbers. And so if you see a +2 right here, like you're doing right now in the E-mini and the NASDAQ, then you're basically seeing a market that's very strong. That's telling you that you had higher highs and higher lows in this market, which is what you're looking for if you're going to trade a trend. Now, below you can change the time frame down to a 30-minute time frame. That's a bigger look, but you can change it any time frame you want to. But I changed the second one to a 30-minute, okay? And you can see it's neutral right now, which is exactly what the ETR line is saying, okay? And so by a visual glance, what I'm looking for is either solid green or solid red. And then I was watching bonds for a potential trade, and I put this in my hot box, which is the time and sales of bonds. Over to the right, we have our unique charts. Our unique charts is how I look at the market. You'll see the E-mini is in the top one. I've got the NASDAQ in the bottom chart. Basically, looking at those two charts, I can see the NASDAQ is slightly stronger than the E-mini, and we're currently right around the midpoint of the last 24 hours. And the midpoint is an important concept because it basically says in the short term, right now, the market's very neutral. Any questions about the roadmap before I show you the global handshake? The other feature when I'm tracking a lot of different markets is the horse race. And right now I've got this set up for crude oil, which is slightly positive from its open. I've got the dollar weak and the euro strong. If you look at the euro right now, the euro is very strong and moving higher. It's called the horse race. The charts themselves. I have metrics on any market that I'm looking at. So if I'm looking at D-mini right now, which if you look at it, you see it open at 1730. It has an average true range of 21 points. The 5-day high in D-mini, 1733. That happened, I think, last night. And then, of course, where we've been trending since the month, which we opened at 1691. It opened the week at 1684. Now, let me ask you a question. If you'd have come into this week and you would have been able to know, let's say on Sunday night, that the market had high odds of going higher this week, and then it did go higher, do you think you could made some money if you'd had that kind of plan coming in here on Sunday night? Well, that's exactly what happened at DTI Sunday night. We laid out the week, and we did get long, and you'll see some people in here that has had tremendous weeks. But it all started with the roadmap software on Sunday night, laying out the week. Now, I'm gonna put up here. I'm gonna put up here. I'm gonna put the DAX in there where I have the DAX. This keyboard always throws a dot and I have to retype it. Drives me crazy. There you go. Now there's the DAX. If you look at the DAX right now, it's setting up for a trade. It went up to the highs from the opening, came down, tested the 8,800 area, and now it's sitting here getting ready to set up at the key time. All right, so that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And time-wise, what time is it? 5:10. Let me look at how much more time I got to go over stuff with you. Okay, I got 44 minutes. Okay, I've got my early birds starting to sign in, and they're pretty happy, obviously. Thank you, Henry. But if somebody will monitor my room over there and let people know that I'm over here talking, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so I said the global handshake. That was what we were on. You can go up to the launch key, drop down, and you can see the global handshake. This is in real time. I'll put it in the center of the chart. Right now, if I look, I'm looking at a market that is Europe. You got the CAC's up 30.30. The DAX is up 0.6. The FTSE's up 0.19. Swiss is up 0.21. Hang Seng was up a point. And the Nikkei was just slightly neutral. But I'm going to tell you, this is the key figure right here, where it says the average. If you see this average, and right now it's at 0.28. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty small, but if you see that average of 0.28, it needs to be greater if it's going up than 0.40, okay? 0.40. And so I'll be monitoring this between now and 6 a.m. this morning, okay? But that's how it does it automatically. It computes it for you. And so you, with one click of a button, you take the global handshake and you sit there and say, okay, that's what it looks like, okay? All right, so let's go back to the slideshow. So basically, here's where I'm looking at the global handshake this morning. It's neutral, which really is what the DTR line is telling us and what the unique charts of DTI are telling us. Neutral market right now. And do I want to trade when the market's neutral? Common sense question. No, I don't want to trade when the market's neutral. I want to trade when I'm going to get paid to trade. You ought to write that one down. Only trade when you're going to get paid to trade. Okay, let's talk about reading charts. And it's a trade matrix. I talked a little bit about how it's mathematically being computed for you. Okay? Let's talk about how it's built and how I use it. All right, you take 3 chart patterns. The pattern on the left is what I call a bullish pattern. That's a +1. The pattern in the middle is a negative pattern, and I call that -1. And then, of course, the neutral pattern. So you see the concept: +1, -1, 0. Now, if you do this for groupings, and I'm talking about index groupings, stock index groupings, the crude complex, the metals complex, you start getting a picture of whether you ought to be long or short and ought to trade, or whether you use the old saying, buying dips and selling rallies, or selling rallies and buying dips based on these numbers. And I've been able to convert regular charts to these numbers, which there's no question what you should be doing when you're looking at a number, where if you're looking at some chart pattern, there's a lot of ambiguity there, and it can be anything you want it to be. You can't argue with the numbers. The numbers are there, and you can take those numbers and learn to use those numbers when you're evaluating the market. This concept alone, okay, no one else has ever done this, and this concept alone will improve your trading. Everybody understand the 3 patterns? You think you could recognize those patterns and then do what the market told you? That's the second key to this. Not what you want the market to do, but do what the market tells you. That would be the second key. Let's test it. Is that a +1, -1, or 0 pattern on that chart? And 0 is associated with what action? Stay out, right? How about that one? There you go, Vish. You're getting it. And that one. Okay, you see how it works, right? Okay, now you go through and you look at the daily process and then the intraday. So let's come over to the real market and let me test you. This is the DAX in the top chart. Everybody see the DAX in the top chart? Would that be a 0, +1, or -1 if I'm looking at the DAX right now? Exactly. And so what is the action I'm taking in the market right now? I'm staying out. You know, some people say, hey, I'm staying out. I've just showed you why I'm staying out. Okay? Now, when would I go in? Well, if I take out the high of that bar, which is about 88.31, I would probably go into the DAX. Or if I took out the low of that bar, which is about 88.09, I might consider taking the market negative. You see how I did that? Just looking at the DAX, the E-minis the same way. We're neutral on the we're neutral on this. But let's look at the euro. I don't know if anybody trades the euro, but let's look at the euro and see what you come up with on the euro. If you look at the euro, what kind of patterns in the euro right now? Yeah, it's +1. And so if you look at the euro, you should be long the euro. Anybody here long the euro? Playing with that to give you a good chart. I'm messing it up there. See how that's a +1? So if you ask me, Tom, are you in the euro? Yes, and I'm long. See how I did that? And you're getting paid by using this trade matrix when you evaluate a chart. How many people like this concept? Gets your attention, doesn't it, Andrew? You wonder why people, my students signed in and said sign up, right? That is the 30-minute chart. Y'all give me a market to look at that's trading right now, and I'll put it in there. You want to look at gold? Let's put gold in there. Everybody see gold? Don, every time you're in one of my seminars, you type that same thing in there. Why don't you go do something else? I know you're a competitor. I get tired of you doing that. It's rude. He hit me on a bad moment. I had to laugh. Anyway, if you look at gold right now, it's telling you it's going positive, right? All right. Well, anyway, that's what you do when you look at the market. Oh, I know, but the same guy, he signs in, like here it is, 5:20 a.m. in the morning, 5:20 a.m. in the morning. I've been trading for over 30 years, and uh, and I see this guy all the time do that. I don't know who he is. He won't sign in by his real name. I know, but I just wanted to let him know and finally recognize him after about 20 emails. Anyway, the trade matrix is a new tool that shows you the trend of the market based off the previous bar, and do you have higher highs or low, or lower lows. The matrix tells you the trend, and based off the indexes, you see that we have a lot of what I call supporting data that tells us uh, whether we ought to be long or short. Because if we get long or short right, odds are we might make some money. And it's whether I should be looking for the downside or the upside. So right now, looking at the DAX, I will tell you that if I look at the DAX right now, if it takes out 88.31, I'm probably going to trade the DAX. I can tell you that right now. Okay? And I did that from the trade metrics. The chart symbol for me on the DAX is DAX Z3-DTB. And we just looked at the trade matrix in real time and did the test. Okay, time-wise, it's 5:22. Why don't we take about a 2-minute break, give me a chance to get some more coffee. When I come back, let's do a trade setup, and I'll go through the checklist to do that. So you won't hear any sound for the next 2 minutes. Okay, let's do a trade setup, if we will, on the DAX, okay? The DAX right now is trading 88.26.5. $88.26.5. Each DAX point is worth 25 euros. Okay, 25 euros. So let's do some math here. If I made 10 DAX points, how much money would I make in US? You'd have to convert it, right? You'd make 250 euros. And what is the conversion rate for the euro? Okay, so you'd multiply 137 times 250. How much money would that be? If you made 10 euros, this is hypothetically, if you made 10 euros and you made 250 euros, it would convert to about 342. Now, if you could do one trade a day at the right time of day and had a pretty good average, let's just say you made 10 trades, and you made 10 trades and you had an accuracy rate of about 80%. That means you're going to lose twice and you're going to make 12. So if you risk the same amount of money you're going to make on the times on your reward side, so you would lose 500 euros and you would make 500. You'd lose 10 euros would be 20 euros is what you'd lose, 10 per trade, and you'd take 20 negative, and you would make 8 times 10 would be 80, minus 20 would give you a 60 net. 60 net, okay? $60 net would be how many euros? If you made 60 euros, how much would you make if you converted it to US? What 60 times, excuse me, what 60 euros? Okay, so it tells you the value of the DAX. So let's do a trade setup looking at the DAX. Let's put the DAX back in here. Put symbol into the deal. If you look at the DAX right now, I want it to go above that high there, which is actually 33. So I'm going to place a buy stop at 33 and a half. I'll tell you the way I'll do it. I'll see. Here's what I'll do. I'll use this entry technique. Okay. I want to see 33 and a half, and I'm going to place a limit order at 31 once I see 33 and a half. Now, I use an electronic platform to place these orders. They're called, it's Ninja Traders who I use, okay? And so I'm looking at a dome right now. And what I'm going to do is, the DAX right now is at 29. Does everybody see the DAX at 29? This is how you do a trade setup. See the DAX at 29. I'm going to let it go up, make a new high, and then I'm going to place a limit order to buy it at 31, which is 2 points below that new high. Everybody got it? Now, let's talk about the risk. If I buy it at 31, I'm going to place my stop at 19. Everybody see the DAX at 30 right now? Everybody see that? Respond if you see the DAX at 30, because I don't want to lose people in this trade setup, okay? Okay, you do, okay? All right, so the DAX is at 30. Everybody sees the DAX at 30. Okay. I want the trade matrix on the DAX to go positive, and it has to go to 33 and a half. Yes, Leah, but I'm talking about short term right now, okay? And I'm talking about notice in 27 seconds, my ETR line is going to change, right? Okay, has it hit 33? I took my eye off of it. It hadn't hit 33 and a half yet, has it? It's at 31 and a half, right? Since I'm very close to making this trade, why don't let me watch the market a second, because I am going to make this trade. I'm waiting to see it hit 33 and a half, and then I'm going to place a limit order at 31. That's going to be my trade setup. And this is going to be what I call a probing trade. A probing trade is one that I don't put my full boat on, right? I'm just putting a partial number. And in this case, I'm going to use one trade today because it's a demonstration trade. Everybody got it? Yes, there is, SJ, the NASDAQ. If you look at the NASDAQ, it's at 33.15 right now. And so I would want to see about 33.16 on the NASDAQ, okay? And you can convert it to the NASDAQ. That help you, SJ? Okay, let's go back to the global handshake. Now let's check. Remember where I told you the key metric on that? Time of day, Simon. This is sort of the premature. 6 o'clock is the time of day for the DAX, and I'm not going to be with you after 6. I'm only going to be with you another 23 minutes. But I'm trying to show you what goes into making a trade decision, and that's the important part and the important message today. Okay? Okay. The global handshake, you don't remember this, but I do, was at 0.29. The average was at 0.29 when I first started looking at it, okay? It's moving higher. Since I first started, it was at 0.29. Now it's at 0.31. So the global markets around the globe, they're starting to buy more stocks, okay? Everybody understand the concept. Underneath this trade is the world, okay? And as we get closer to what key time this morning, what key time exactly? What happens at 6 o'clock Central Time in New York City? Anybody know? A lot of the people that had gotten up are at their office and they're looking at the market and they're saying, how am I? The first question they asked is the same question that we asked every day, which is, how am I going to make money today, right? They look at the market, they'll read the news on, a lot of people don't know Google, for example, okay? A lot of people don't know that Google is trading at 963 this morning. A lot of people don't know that. You might know it because I mentioned it, but unless you trade Google, you might not be aware that Google is up a mammoth 60-something dollars. And this is the fun part. Do I have any of my students in here that's still long Google with me? This is the fun part. Do I have anybody here? Alan? Good. Jim? Okay, perfect. And you bought it at about $2.50 the option, right? Okay. So we got a lot of happy people in here right now waiting for the opening. 963. If that doesn't wake you up in the morning, let's. While I'm waiting for the DAX to set up, let's talk about this. How are the people that are short Google feeling this morning when they see it at 963? Do you know how long it takes them to make a decision to get out? Would y'all like to know the actual time, the best time for us to sell our Google this morning since we're on the right side? It takes about 7 minutes after 8:30. At 8:37 this morning is when I will sell my Google option, because that is that will allow them enough time to be in there and pay anything to get out. So you learned something this morning. You learned that if you're shrewd enough and can plan well enough and get on the right side of a market, then you know what the other side's going to do, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it. About 7 minutes after the opening this morning, Google will get an order from me that basically says somebody just got their face peeled. That's something you need to know if you ever are around me or whatever. So, okay, so I've got a trade set up here. I'm waiting for the DAX to go to 33.5. The DAX hadn't gone to 33.5. Do I just go on and jump into the trade? Did I just go on and jump into the trade? No. That's the discipline of trading, okay? Now, while we're waiting, all right, any questions? Let me summarize what I covered this morning where you know you got something out of this. Number one, I told you, and Sanford, will you type this in there? This is sort of a summary of sort of the key concepts this morning that I told people. Number one, I told them that there are about 6 books they ought to have. One book in particular, if they got interest in trading stocks, is called How I Trade in Stocks by Jesse Livermore, Chapter 12. Will you type that in there? Chapter 12 of the book Trade in Stocks, okay? I'll wait for Sanford to type that. Okay? Sanford, are you here? Surely. Maybe Sanford's not here. Well, somebody type what I just said. Number one, thanks, Jim. Chapter 12. I think it's the best chapter on trading stocks I've ever read. I would encourage you to read it, of that book. Number two, I told you if you went to the Eurex exchange, you ought to sign up for the newsletter. Number two, sign up for the Eurex exchange newsletter. Number three, I told you how to read charts in numbers, and we call that the trade matrix. Number three. If you look at the DAX right now, it's about to hit 33.5. Everybody see the DAX right here is 32.5. Everybody see that? No, the Eurex market outlook, okay? Okay, let's look at the market a second because I think that it's very close. I want to set my order, then I'll go and I'll keep covering the key concepts of today's webinar, okay? Jim, why don't you, if you can, there's 33. Okay, it just got hit. I'm placing my order at 31.5, 31.5. I'm placing my buy order in. I'm placing my stop in at 19. My orders are placed, and I'll see if I get filled, okay? Okay, the NASDAQ. I'll buy the NASDAQ at the market, and I'll place my stop in at 09. On the NASDAQ, I'm risking 7 points or $140 on the NASDAQ, okay? So I'm adding the market on the NASDAQ. Elena, I teach that in my DAX class. I have buy and sell numbers, okay? All right, SJ, my target on this trade will be 45, okay? On the NASDAQ trade, my target will be 30, 33.30. And that takes a whole bunch of time to explain that. Those will be my particular targets for these trades. All right, let's go. Can y'all, I only got 15 minutes left. Let me keep covering the key concepts. Jim, will you post what I told you, 1, 2, and 3, and that gets my mind going back to things I covered, okay? I'm going to have Jim post for everybody 1, 2, and 3 because I got more things that I want to emphasize. And I'm long the NASDAQ. I'm buying the DAX at 31.5. My stop's at 19. Jim, are you still here? Or did he go start trading? Sanford, scroll up in the chat. Jim typed in the first 3 things I wanted to emphasize. I need you to do that for me. I'm long the DAX now. Okay, chapter 12 of the Livermore book. Number 2, the newsletter from Eurex, and Sophia had the link for that. Number 3 was the concept of trade matrix, okay? That was number 3. Number 4, I talked about the global handshake and how to monitor the average this time of day. That was number 4. The trade matrix. Number 5, I talked about risk and placing stops and looking at trades over 10 trades to get your accuracy rate. And that's where you make modifications to what you're doing every 10 trades. That's where you get better, okay, at doing it. That's number 4. Number 5, I talked about how I have indicators inside the roadmap, like the horse race, to identify where maybe trade opportunities are and how I want to make money. Number 6, I talked about the world's global market and the key times that kicked off Asia, Europe, early U.S., and late U.S. And those key times start new sessions for me when I'm evaluating the market, okay? I mean, I know a lot of you made money in the morning before and gave it back in the afternoon. Generally, the reason you did that was because you were using the same strategy in the morning that worked, and in the afternoon, after the market turned to late USA, it took a different strategy. Number 7. Am I on number 7 now? Number 7, if you take a trade, take into account time of day, your entry level, your risk level, and your target level for the particular trade you're doing. In the case of the DAX, I'm looking for 88.45 as my target. I've got my risk. I had my entry. Everybody understand how I did that? I had those 3 numbers before I traded. And for the NASDAQ, entered at 33.15.5. The stop is 33.09. 33.09, and my target is 33.45. So that's number 7. Number 8, I would encourage you to read anything you can about the market. There's always something good that you might get out of anything that you read about the market. Number 9, download the DTI app. And if you download the DTI app, you will from time to time hear from me when I see things that you ought to hear about, okay? And number 10, have a positive attitude every day. And if somebody's got a negative attitude, run. Believe me, if somebody's got a negative attitude, get away from it, okay? That's why I think the way I do when I'm trading. All right, let's go back to the slideshow and I'll wrap up the webinar. How can you get involved with DTI? If you fill out the roadmap profile, and the roadmap profile, you have to copy and paste this link, okay? If you copy and paste this link and fill out the roadmap profile, tell me who you are. I want to know who I'm dealing with, okay? Fill this out, and I will give you access to my Sunday night planning session, the one I talked about earlier on, okay? So it's pretty simple. Take the time, fill out the survey, let me know who you are. You'll get a password. If you can't make it Sunday night, you'll get a recording. So if you take the time to fill this out, I will do that, okay? Now, it says my Tuesday DAX class. I'm not doing the DAX class next Tuesday. I'm doing one next Thursday, so that's a correction. Somebody type that in there to know that that's a correction. I'll do one next Thursday, not next Tuesday. I'll be down in Orlando this weekend. Everybody have the link? Sanford, why don't you post a link in the chat room also where they can copy and paste it easier? No, it's a probing trade, SJ. Okay? It's a probing trade. Leah, great question. I'm looking to have that occur by 7 o'clock Central Time this morning. By 7 o'clock Central Time this morning. That's when I'm looking for it to occur. NASDAQ the same time. By 7 a.m. Central Time this morning. Folks, it's been nice being with you this morning. And thanks, Jim, for downloading the app. I think you'll enjoy it. It doesn't cost you anything, but you'll get to sort of find out how we trade and how we think, get to know us. It's been nice being with everybody. Let's see what else. Oh, you got a bonus if you fill out the app. You'll get an audio copy of my book, Winning the Day Trading Game. Okay? Any questions, you can send me an email at t.busby99@gmail.com with any questions or comment. I enjoyed being with you this morning. We'll post that link in the chat room, Sanford. Post that link in the chat room. And let me go back in these slides real quick to that book slide. Okay, there's the book, my books. I'll leave that slide up there. I entered it 3 times last week, DSOP. I entered it on Tuesday morning in a trade we do called the IR trade. And I did it again on Wednesday, and I entered yesterday afternoon. So 3 different times in the week. So I'm sort of loaded on Google because I told people I thought the earnings were going to blow people away. And that was based on the stock action. 30, Martin, and that's plus a 3 points from there, okay? All right, I got 4 minutes left. Anybody have any? No, Sanford. They'll get an email with an invitation, okay? They'll get an email with an invitation if they fill out the link. Anybody got any other questions before I leave? I enjoyed being with you this morning. Fill out that link right there. I like the almanac because my memory, I can't remember anymore all this stuff even though I lived it. And I like to see it in numbers. And when I read the almanac, it brings back the memories. It brings back the memories of these events occurring. And then I remember, based on my experience, how I handled it. And so it's just sort of like a little history book. It's like a cheat sheet for me since I've been around so much. Glenn, what would tell me to add to my probing NASDAQ position? For the DAX to take out 33 or 88, 88, 35 area, I would add to it, and it to be 6 o'clock. Okay, time is very important to me. I got about another 9 minutes before I do that. Okay. Remember, my target is 33.30, and remember that I'll exit this trade. By the way, I will exit this trade no later than 7 o'clock, regardless of the price. Okay. Everybody understand that? So I got limited time exposure in this trade. Yeah, I'll exit both trades by 7 a.m. this morning if I don't hit my objectives. Everybody understand what I'm doing? This is a short-term trade. I really didn't care if you traded or not. I was trying to give you a demonstration of what I would do, and I did do it. And I think it's just more realistic to go through the emotions of it as you're learning how to do this. We may win, we may lose. I think it's a good probing trade. Not anything you want to bet the farm on. All right, I got a minute and a half to go. Did anybody have any trouble getting to the survey, the profile, the roadmap profile? Adam will follow up today and get your audio book to you and give you the passwords for Sunday night. I want to thank everybody for coming. Now I got to go do my thing. Any last minute questions for me? Remember, I prefer numbers to just general charts. Okay, Leah, will you write this down? By 7 a.m. this morning. Ashley, I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I think Morgan's got a way for you to get that, or Sanford to tell you that. Y'all have a great trading day, and I want y'all to remember one time this morning. What's the key time I want you to remember this morning? 8:37 a.m. Why do I want you to remember 8:37 a.m. this morning? What will me and a whole bunch of my students be doing at 8:37 a.m. this morning? All right, cashing in. I like that Art Cashin, by the way. He's a good guy on the, I guess, CNBC. Yeah, 8:37 this morning. I will be tied up trading. And by the way, I'm showing Google right now 962 to 964. People are starting to wake up and find out they bet the wrong way. Leah, where are you from? Lee, where are you from? Okay, you're on Eastern time, right? So 8 o'clock Eastern time this morning, I either want to make money on this trade or exit this trade, okay? All right, my time's up. Everybody have a great day. See y'all on the flip side. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And think of me at 8:37 a.m. this morning. Get your profile filled out, and Adam will take care of you. Write this number down if you signed up and you don't hear from us. 1-800 1-800-745-7444.